Hello, my fellow chatterers and book lovers, and anyone else who's popped in because you're curious about what this is or you've got a bit lost. Welcome, everyone. I'm Chatty. This is my channel, Chatty's Mad Chatter, and I'm going to be chatting to you madly about my top 10 books, my top 10 middle grade books that I read in 2024. Thank you so much for popping in if you're new here. Grab yourself a brew and welcome back, everyone, if you have been here before. I am very excited. I've not done a top 10 video before. But I just felt like looking at all the middle grade books I have and seeing if I could manage to, from all of those, find my 10 favourites that I read this year. So, a little bit of context. I read 37 middle grades this year. 4 of those were rereads. 28 of those I would reread in the future. 17 I absolutely loved and adored. So the top 10 was really tricky to narrow down to my absolute favourites. And one thing I have discovered is the big thing that works for me is I really love a book that impacts me emotionally. I love some setup of like a character's story arc, and then I love the emotional payoff when something kind of happens around that character's journey. That is kind of the crux of what I love in my stories. And my favourite genre tends to be fantasy. So surprise, surprise, 7 of these books are fantasy books and 3 of these books are contemporary books. New stats, I have one book that was my oldest book, and it was published in 2019. So not really that old in the grand scheme of things. I have a book from 2021 and 2022, 5 books from 2023, and 2 books from 2024. So relatively, I'm reading a lot of new books. I didn't work this out until after I'd listed them all, but very interestingly, considering one of my goals is that I want half of what I read to be global majority, 5 of these 10 books are by global majority authors. 2 of these 10 books have an LGBTQ+ protagonist, and 4 of these books either have a protagonist or have a theme in the book that deals with disability representation. So that's made me really happy that the books, I am finding the books and the stories that I really love, and it's all coming together. I'm not going to do my little teacup gimmick. We are doing one continuous shot, so there could be chaos because I'm not redoing this. So let's see what happens. Cheers, everybody. Clink, 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 clink. And before I get into the books, I've got one last thing I just want to finish waffling on about. And that is this absolutely gorgeous necklace that my mum bought me for Christmas. So this was from Natta, and I intended to show it off in my 2024 reflections of the year goals and my 2025 wishes, but I didn't. So here it is. I was wearing it, but you couldn't see it. It has got... it's a long gold chain, and on the bottom is a teacup on a saucer with white and gold stripes. And then, gorgeously, a second teacup drops into it and it's blue. And then I've got a white dotty one, a greeny sort of mint one, and then another blue one. And they all sit on a chain, and I could just play with all the teacups like that. It's great fun. Right, moving actually on. Let's crack on with the books. So I called it a top 10, but I have to give an honourable mention. So technically, I suppose you'd call it number 11, but I really found this one really difficult to place. It was an incredibly powerful book, but it's the only book that is a non-fiction book, and it's the only book that is a graphic novel. So I found it very hard to kind of compare as to where I would put it because it is so different to the other ones that I have read. So it's not really number 11. It's not really an honourable mention. It's kind of a highlight and a mention all of itself. And it is When Stars Are Scattered by Omar Mohammed and Victoria Jameson. So this is a memoir by Omar Mohammed, who is a Somalian refugee, and him and his younger brother Hassan spent most of their life in a refugee camp in Dababa refugee camp in Kenya. And it is about Omar's story that he has pulled together. So it's his memoir that he's pulled together into more of a fictional account. So it's true, but some of the people he's met in his life have been kind of melded together into one character. So it's sort of more fictionalized in that sense, but essentially it is his memoir. that's been pulled together with the help of Victoria Jameson, who's crafted it into this graphic novel and drawn and illustrated it. And it's just such a powerful story about the relationship between these brothers, what it's like to grow up in a refugee camp, what it means in terms of food, and what it means in terms of education, and the importance of education, but also the importance of family, of finding friendships, of how this essentially is a community, but also like it's like kind of like a prison. You can't really leave from it once you're there. So it was a really powerful story, so it had to get its own little mention. If that sounds interesting, I do know that Katja and Jack are going to be reading it this year, I think possibly in the spring, as part of their middle grade and YA translated fiction. I will leave the links in the description box for both their channels and their announcement videos on this project. Okay, so the first book, number 10. We're going to start at 10 and work the way to the top because it's just the most fun way to do it. Number 10 is one of the many books of 2023 that I read. It's kind of the last book I read in the year, so I don't even know if my December wrap-up is going to be out by the time this airs, but it is Impossible Creatures by Catherine Rundell. It won't be a surprise that this is on a top 10. This is an amazing book. It might surprise you as to why it's 10 and not at least in the top 5. I loved the writing of this book. This book was definitely a sit around the campfire, let me tell you an amazing magical fantasy story. It was very beautiful. It felt very classic, but also fresh at the same time. The world building is fantastic. The characters' journey and the plot and the whimsy and the magic and the danger and the tension in it all is incredible. The reason it's not placed higher is just as lovely as our duo is, our protagonist Christopher and his new friend Mal, as lovely as they are, I didn't connect with them emotionally as much as I connected with some of the other characters in these books. I didn't have such a strong reaction to some of the stuff they went through. I'm not quite sure why that is. I don't know if Christopher just felt more of like a storyteller rather than someone who's discovering something about himself and kind of going on his own emotional journey as well. I think that was a bit that didn't strike it as highly because, as I mentioned, I've discovered that my emotional connection to the book is the key part of how much I liked it. But I know this has been like the top book for so many people. It is an amazing story. I can't wait to keep continuing with this yarn. I do not know what the next story is going to look like. I don't know if it's going to be set in this world, if we're still going to be following some of the characters in here, if we're going to do a mixture of new and old characters. I'm not sure how the story is going to progress, but I definitely want to find out more about this world. That it's so rich, like the civilizations, the history, the characters. It's absolutely gorgeous. World building, outstanding. But it was the character connection that just meant I just didn't quite love it as much as I could have loved it. But absolutely fabulous book. Next, at number 9, I have a book. It is a contemporary book. And it was one where I was trying to choose which one. I've only put one. It's a book in a series. And I was trying to decide which book I wanted. Because the books that I read, both of them touched me emotionally in different ways. But I have gone with Patina from the Run series by Jason Reynolds. It is book 2, sometimes called the Running Club or the Track series. But this is a series of books about a running club. And each of the 4 newbies in the running club, so they all are new for sort of this level in this year. And they kind of are all together. They're all kind of put together as these newbies, and they slowly start to build this friendship. And each story focuses on a different one of their lives and events. So you have sprinters, you have long distance runners, and they all go to the club each week and meet, and they're trying to work on their running. But there's also an aspect of their life that they're trying to work on as well. Like, none of the children in here have an easy life. and it's been so delightful to get to know these characters, and the coach just bringing them out of themselves. Like, it's not just a running club, it is also a family, and it's a place where they are growing as young people into the kind of adults they want to be, and they've each got a journey to go on. Patina in particular, the dedication is something that really moved me, and as I read the book, when I looked at the dedication again, like just from the dedication, it was beautiful. So Patina, she is a 400 meter runner, so she's a middle distance runner, and she learns to do the relay in this book. She also has an aspect of a carer as well, and so this book is called this book is dedicated to those who've been passed the baton too young, and it just gets me there. But what I love about this book, I love the relationship between Patina and her sister. I really love the kind of different family setup that Patina has and how that's explored. I love her different friendship groups, different aspects of her life, and how all of this is melded together, and how she really kind of starts to state who she is, and in terms of herself, and not how other people perceive her. And it's just gorgeous. It is just gorgeous. I feel very emotional about this book, and I had an amazing time with it. The first book, Ghost, I did also really love, but there was just something about Patina that just edged it a little bit for me. I think, again, I had a more emotional reaction from certain parts of this story, and yeah, beautiful. And I just realised I wanted to do something, and that was to read the first sentence of each book. So we're just going to rewind. Blah, 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 blah. So the first sentence of Impossible Creatures by Catherine Rundell is... I'm not going to read the information about all the beasts at the beginning. It was a very fine day until something tried to eat him. That's all you're getting. And from Patina, the first sentence of Patina is, "There's no such thing as a false start." Number 8. We're back on fantasy. We're back on 2023, and it is Greenwild by Parry Thomas. So Greenwild, The World Behind the Door, to be specific. This is a fantasy story. It's a portal fantasy. And what I really loved about this book is the journey of our protagonist, Daisy. So Daisy's mum is a journalist. So Daisy spends most of her life following her mum around and going to different locations and working on stories. And there is kind of no fixed abode for them, but there's one story that her mum is very keen to go on, but she's worried it's not safe for Daisy, so she sends her to a boarding school so she can be safe, and then her mum will be back. And it's the relationship between Daisy and her mum, what Daisy manages to do by herself, and the discovery of this portal to a place called the Greenwild, which is hidden patches of greenery, of sort of the wild. I don't know how to... There's people who are more planty than me will have a much better way of explaining it, but it's like sort of like natural pockets of the natural world that are being protected. So I love the kind of environmental kind of theme that comes through here. I love the exploration of an attempt to found family. I love the exploration of kind of judgment within here. There is a little bit of a link to the concept of immigration, and not the concept of immigration, the theme of immigration and how people treat you, and proving you belong somewhere, and saying this can be my home too. Also, you've got all the wonderful whimsy of life in Greenwild, the greenhouses, the fact they all have their own overalls, the plants, and the magic. So all of the whimsical world is absolutely gorgeous, but it is at its heart, it is the character arc of Daisy, it's the themes, and I did cry at this book. So obviously it got me. And it produced a big emotional reaction for me, which is one of the things. I'm not going to tell you if there were happy tears or sad tears. But yeah, there were lots of emotional moments in this book for me, and I did sob at one point whilst reading this. Yeah, it was just, I really enjoyed the storytelling. I really enjoy Parry Thomas's authorial voice. It was very delightful, and I can't wait to carry on with the series. And the first sentence for Greenwild is, "The sandstorm came in like a leopard on the hunt, fast and very wild." Book number 7 is another fantasy. I would class this possibly more as magical realism in terms of the subgenre of fantasy, and that is The Snow Girl by Sophie Anderson. I'm very delighted to have another Sophie Anderson to love. If you have read Sophie Anderson's books before, you'll be very familiar with the fact that they are Slavic. They're based on Slavic folk tales. So they have this kind of legend, fairy tale-esque story to them that's explored within kind of like the present day setting. So there is always an aspect of a legend or a tale that the protagonist hears about and then kind of comes into being within the story in some form or other. And The Snow Girl was no different to that. We have a lovely tale about the snow child made of snow, but the magic aspect of it was much less. The other books, there's only one of her other stories I haven't read. I haven't read The Thief's Song or Song of the Thief. But for me, I'm so delighted to have loved another Sophie Anderson, because I love the house, Girl with Chicken Legs. I love The Girl Who Speaks Bear. Sorry, The House with Chicken Legs, not The Girl with Chicken Legs. The House with Chicken Legs, The Girl Who Speaks Bear. The Castle of Tangled Magic, I had really high expectations for. And whilst the world building and storytelling and legend and fantasy elements were a lot of fun, I didn't get the emotional connection I really expected from a Sophie Anderson. So I didn't love that one as much. This is the other way. The fantasy elements are much lower. It is mainly about the Snow Girl. The magic comes from the Snow Girl. It's very much kind of set in our world. It's much more kind of contemporary setting, but the atmosphere of this, of the ice, of the isolation of this community, all of that just really brings the story to life, and it feels magical in that sense. Absolutely best time to read is the winter if you're a seasonal reader. I loved reading this in the winter. It was the first book I read in December, and it was beautiful. But what really did the Sophie Anderson magic for me was how I felt for the character. I've totally forgotten her name, Tasha. Tasha has struggled with something from her past. It feels a little bit like she's got some sort of anxiety or PTSD from something that's happened to her. And I think it's referred to just enough and then revealed at the right point in the story to kind of keep you intrigued, have you root for her, have you want to protect her, and have you want to come out the other side of whatever it is that's kind of stopping her from managing to live the life to her best ability. And it's that kind of really pulled me in, along with the themes of friendship, of community, of family, of supporting each other, of kind of growing past a tragic event that's happened to you. And it was just beautiful. And it's just all in here. It's a complete package, and it just takes you on a journey of emotion, and it just feels so atmospheric and gorgeous. I just loved it. The first line from The Snow Girl. Oh, and this is another 2023 book. It is the year. 2023's year was now. So the first line is, Tasha was untangling a baby goat from a bramble patch when the snow began to fall. And the baby goat is adorable. Okay, I have one more book until we are in the top 5. So book number 6, it's another contemporary, and it is Jamie by L.D. Lipinski. So this story, again, it was the emotional connection and protection to Jamie, rooting for Jamie, wanting Jamie to succeed, and just the themes explored in this book, which I found so moving, so important, and so beautifully done. I'll go into what they are. So Jamie is non-binary. Jamie has been accepted in their school. They're in the last year of primary school, all hunky-dory, But choosing a secondary school, there is only a boys' school or a girls' school. So the schools are separated on gender and you kind of have one or the other. But then Jamie's like, so where do I fit in? Where do I go? And it starts to have the whole community sort of explore this concept of gender and how they've kind of been able to listen to Jamie and respect Jamie when it was easy for them. But when they've got to look at things and question their normal day-to-day life, that's when they Jamie starts to feel the heat a little bit from that. And it's a beautiful exploration of kind of self-examination, like, why am I doing this? Who am I hurting? There's an exploration of like friendships, there's an exploration of parental relationships, teacher and student and mentor, supportive. All of those things are explored in here, and it's just done so beautifully. It is own voices, and I think that authenticity just stings throughout this book. It's really like heartfelt, but it's not beating you over the head with it. It says just enough, I think, for the story to kind of continue without it trying to be preachy. And I just think it's so beautifully done. It's about Jamie, like that's the crux of the book. This is about Jamie. This is about not necessarily Jamie's journey, but like Jamie really connecting with the wider society, and it's very much the wider society that has the problem, that needs to look at themselves. And I loved this. And the first line. I have this great idea. I'll read the first line and then I'll just forget to do it. So the first line of Jamie. Have you ever had a secret? Ta-da! I've got hair in my mouth. Blah, blah. I'm going to have another drink of tea and then I'm going to do the top 5. Okay. I think this took a lot. It started getting hard. Like, it was hard trying to reorganize all of the top 10, and then getting to the top 5, it got very hard. But all 10 of these books, like I said, 17 of these books I loved and adored. So this has been really tricky, but I think it's been good for me to like really dig deep and decide what I love the most. Okay. Book number 5 is The Secrets of Haven Point by Lisette Autumn. This is a fantasy book. It was published in, I think it was 2022. Stupidly lost that place. Just talk amongst yourself while I finish finding my page. Yes, it was 2022. This was the buddy read book, the group book for the Spoonies Readathon, done by Emily at Novel Novels. And it was also one of the books that I picked up on the Booktuber meetup in March. I got this copy from Liberia, the first bookshop we went into. I had originally got this book out of the library because I really wanted to read it, but it wasn't its time. So I'm so pleased I read it when it was its time, when I could just sit and enjoy it rather than reading it going, but I'm supposed to be reading other things, and not really appreciating it and being able to concentrate on it. The Secret at Haven Point, our protagonist is called Alpha. Yeah. And Alpha was the first orphan to be taken in at, is it Reckings Bay? At Haven Point. Haven Point, and they call them the Recklings. So Alpha sort of is adopted, and then slowly more and more people come, and the Haven Point becomes this sort of like haven for anyone who has a disability, and it always like judged as different by other people, and it just becomes a place where everyone can be exactly who they are without anyone needing to feel like they're a burden or they're in the way, or that people pity them, or they're given this kind of like sob story, or this, oh, you're so inspiring, how can you do this? They're just them, and they're allowed to be just them. And they adapt things. So they're like, oh, you can't get up the stairs. Well, we'll do this lift thing so you can. And they encourage independence, and they encourage like everyone to be who they are. And you have people that get on with each other and people that don't get on with each other within this community. They're like a family. They have family squabbles. And I think that makes it really true, because also it's a children's book as well. And so you do have that kind of like friendship, like falling in and out. You also have this aspect of they've all come here and they've made their own family here. So it's about a found family. So I think it will definitely resonate with people who, for one reason or another, their family is one that they've patched together themselves. And that is a lovely, true, strong family. But it doesn't stop the pain of not of a blood or birth family having either rejected or not understood you and not allowed you to feel yourself. And I think all of that is explored in here. We also have mermaids in this book who are part of like the Wreckings gang. They target ships which are like dodgy ships, and then they get their provisions and extra kind of bits and pieces from there. They also like grow their own vegetables and all of those things. And it is very much a family explored in here. I got very emotionally connected to Alpha and her best friend Badger. I love Badger. I've always said that she is one of my favourite characters. I just think she's so awesome. She's so fun. She's so fierce. And I love how her and Alpha together are, and that they don't take rubbish from each other and they call each other out. And they have their own different things to go through. And I think it's important that they go through them and work on it and come out the other side. So I really enjoyed Alpha and Badger's relationship. I really enjoy the relationship that Alpha has with sort of like her mentors, kind of adoptive parent figures in here. And it's, yeah, the story pulls together in a certain way. There is an opportunity for more to happen in the series, which is what I would love, because I want to be with these characters. But it also kind of gives us as an if you're an able-bodied person, it makes you kind of look at yourself as well and reflect on yourself in terms of your judgment of people. And it does kind of look at that. Is it better for everyone who is different to be in a place where everyone's different and then we don't need to worry about it? Or are we kind of damaging ourselves by not mixing with different people, like everyone who feels similar, but then people who don't understand what that is but can learn from those people? Like, it does explore kind of both sides of that. For want of a better word, it sounds rubbishy, but like mixing and not mixing. It's not the right words I want, but that'll have to do for now. So it explores that as well. So I love the themes in this book. The themes in this book are gorgeous, but it's the emotional reaction, it's the emotional payoff that I got from here that just made me absolutely fall in love with it. Yeah, loved this book. Book number 4 is Root Magic by Eden Royce. I read this book very early on in the year. It's a book that I'd had for ages. I really felt I was going to love, and I felt like I was keeping it back because it wasn't its time. Well, when its time came, it definitely delivered. This is another book where, again, I just fell in love with the protagonist. I think that's the key, just really rooting for the protagonist, wanting her story, wanting her to succeed, watching her deal with adversity, watching her deal with grief, watching her deal with her place in the family, watching her deal with newfound skills that she's inherited. This is historical fiction fantasy. It's set in 1963 in South Carolina, and it explores this family that like to keep hold of their traditional Gullah roots. So the traditional teachings, the traditional spiritual beliefs from that, from their heritage, and also the working root. So it's their kind of like medicinal, magical, spiritual kind of things that they do. So these two children begin to be instructed in root magic, and it's how they go about that, and it's how they learn about all the different things they've been taught. And it is ultimately about finding your own strength when everything seems against you, and about holding on to your own integrity and your own moral compass. And the twins, Jess and Jay, they have a close relationship, but they're both growing up and their relationship changes. And I think Jez in particular sort of like finds that quite difficult, and is sort of trying to find that correct connection between her family members as well, who believe ever so slightly differently, and they struggle with a lot of different things. So there's a lot of emotional stuff going on. There's certain layers and things that you're unpicking to try and find out what happened. So there is a sort of a mystery aspect to it as well, just a small one. It definitely has like a spooky vibe to it. Mainly if you're not a horror reader. If you're a horror reader, it's not spooky. If you're not a horror reader, it has a spooky vibe. But the heart of it is Jez. And I just adore her. I adopted her. I want all the good things for her. And Eden Royce's writing is incredible. Like, again, just this creation of this time and place, this warmth that she uses to tell this story is gorgeous. Absolutely gorgeous. Loved it. I didn't read the Haven Point first sentence. We are getting there. Chapter 1. Here are the facts. My name is Alpha Lux. Alpha because it's the first letter of the Greek alphabet, and I was Reckling number 1. And the first sentence of Root Magic is: when Gullah people die, babies in the family get passed over the coffin so the dead person won't come back from the beyond to take them away. Okay, we're now into the top 3. So again, I'm going to have another drink of tea because my voice is starting to go. Okay. The third book, my third favourite middle grade I read this year, was Amari and the Despicable Wonders by B.B. Alston. I love this book. I love this book so much. The reason I think it didn't place higher is because I think it's part of a series, and within that, what I get from this, I've also got from the other 2 books. And it's kind of the combination of all 3 of them that that sort of makes me love it. This story continued in here, and it was incredible, and it's beautiful, and it's amazing. There was just a couple of things that I wanted that this book didn't give me, which I think because my expectations were so here, it just kind of dropped it down a little notch. But also, the story is not just contained within this book. The story is also contained in other books. Anyway, let's get into Amari. So, what B.B. Alston does brilliantly is the world building. His supernatural world mixed with the real world, all the crossovers in there, just work fantastically. We get to see the Beuro again, but we also get to see new places. There's a haunted house in this one. There are references to, like, as well as doing like references to like mythological creatures and giving his own twist on them, there is also references to like well-known like gothic characters, like Frankenstein-esque characters and things like that. But then like there's random like modern twists and puns and things within it that I just love as well. Some I didn't get because I don't have the American culture and were actually pointed out during buddy reads, which is very helpful. But essentially, the humour, the joy, the whimsy of this book is awesome. And again, I love Amari. I want good things for her. I will never stop rooting for her. I love her. I love the fan family. I love the friendship group. There were some difficult relation bits to sort out within these books in terms of like family and friends and those kind of things that I thought were well done. I think the bit I struggled with is, yes, we're following Amari. She is the protagonist, but I think I wanted a little bit more from some of the friendships. And I think there were certain aspects where I kind of wanted a little bit from the other bits of the world that were going on. Like we kind of would come back together and hear about other things. But I know that's my adult fantasy brain kind of talking. Whereas essentially the Amari plot, what Amari was doing, the Despicable Wonders, the different antagonists within here and their plans and all of that, I think it was done really, really well. I was massively freaked out a lot in this book. I was massively hurt in this book. And it was really handled well. Like the emotional things in this book, they all got sorted out and dealt with. So like if the things you're not happy about, we trust in B.B. Alston that he's going to get that sorted out for us. I can't wait to keep reading. Can't wait to keep reading. But yeah, I love Amari. I love the Amari series. This was absolutely excellent. And I'm just going to see if I can read the first sentence. If I can't read the first sentence, I'll read the second. So I can't read the first sentence. No, I'm very sorry. I can't read you any Amari because it's going to spoil stuff. So it's very good. You'll just have to do without a sentence from Amari. I'm sorry. But it's so good. That's so good. Okay, so what has topped Amari for me? What books beat out Amari in my top 10? So book number 2 is Keedie by Elle McNichol. This is a contemporary book. So this is the second 2024 book, Amari and the Despicable Wonders being the second 2024 book. Keedie is a prequel. You can read it as a standalone. Having read A Kind of Spark, you will get more from it in terms of the characters. But that being said, this focuses on a different character. So A Kind of Spark focuses on Addie, who is the younger sibling in this household. This focuses on Keedie, who is a twin. She's Addie's older sister, and she's phenomenal. I just love Keedie. She's such a powerful character. She's so unlike myself, but I absolutely love her and root for her, and she's a legend. What I really loved about Keedie was just from start to finish, I was absolutely hooked. I couldn't stop reading about her. I wanted to succeed. I felt for her. I burnt for her. Like just the pain for her, like how she was managing to get through all of this, the kind of crap that was thrown her way, what she dealt with, how she responded to both of her sisters with different things, and how those relationships were explored and brought out. And she's just such a sincere person. And it was just, yeah, from start to finish, I just loved the book. And it just felt like everything you needed, you kind of got in there. It's not a very big book. I think it's only 200 pages. Yeah, it's 207 pages. So it's a small book, but it packs such a powerful punch. And such a silly thing to say about book, but it's absolutely the right length. Like it just gave you, like, the story flowed. You got this visual image of Keedie. You got to know her as a person. You got to know her passions, her struggles, her drive, what she wants from life. You got to see her friendships explored, how she feels about society and the school and her sister's friends and all of that. It was just the right length, and it was just beautifully packaged and put together. And I just think the structure of it, the pacing of it, it just all absolutely worked, and that's why it's so high on my list. And I didn't even mention, so like Keedie is autistic, and Elle McNichol is also autistic, and the cover artist actually has ADHD. So it is a very it's a neurodivergent representation. It's got great neurodivergent representation is the word I'm talking about. But see, but it's like, it's Keedie that I love. Like, it's wonderful to see that representation and to see those journeys and that social justice issue explored about how people are treated. But basically, essentially, this is just Keedie. It's just Keedie, and we love Keedie. And I can read Keedie. I can read the first line of Keedie. Okay. I mean, it's going to be a bit of a letdown. Sorry. Yeah, I'll read the first 3. So the first line is, "Welcome to Juniper." That's it. Doesn't really give you a taste, does it? "Welcome to Juniper. We're a small Scottish town, and we have centuries of history. We also have bullies." Okay, my number 1 book. My favourite middle grade book that I read in the year of 2024 is Hamra and the Jungle of Memories by Hala Alkaf. This book has everything for me that I want in a book. And the reason why I find this so powerful is because it's like an all-encompassing story. It's just, it takes its character arc, you go on this journey, and then the character is in a different place by the end of it. And it's just beautifully done. It's like a full circle. The themes are woven throughout the story so beautifully. There is heartfelt moments, there are humorous moments, we've got friendship, we've got family, we've got this whole feeling of a fairy tale, and we've got lots of magical whimsy within here, and it's just beautifully put together. I really love Hannah Alcaff's writing. I knew basically reading with the first chapter that I was just going to love this book, because Hannah Alcaff's writing is just, she just takes you in, just takes you straight into the story, and it's just an absolutely gorgeous story. So the fairy tale vibe of it, we hear of the tale of this jungle and the jungle lore inside and what you're supposed to do, and this fable of is it just the fable of a tiger, or is it to do with the jungle? Anyway, they encounter a were-tiger within the jungle, and they have a quest and a bargain and a debt to be paid. And we have two children that get embroiled in this. And I totally forgot until I was listening to Tiffany talking about it. I totally forgot this is all set in the time of COVID. I'd completely forgotten about that. So you've got that aspect to it as well. So you've got that kind of feeling of isolation, of community not being what it was, of people having to make changes, of difficult things that you have to do, and kind of a lot more responsibility and pressure kind of put on younger people that have had to make changes to their life. They've kind of had to grow up. They can't remain children. Our protagonist, Hamra, obviously it's in the title of the book. Sorry, silly brain moment. Hamra has to, she's sort of like one of the carers for her grandma who is suffering with dementia. And it's also that kind of feeling of grief of losing someone that you love, and how that is very difficult to manage, and how you can sometimes feel frustrated with them but then guilty that you're feeling frustrated with them. And it's a lot for a child to take on all of that responsibility and that emotion. And it's a supportive family, it's a loving family, and you can see that from in there. Anyway, Hamra just has her moment of just storming off and forgetting the rules of the jungle, and then there are consequences and repercussions. I think the pacing is brilliant, like the family setup, the emotional feelings within that, the relationships within that, and then this kind of the jungle and the, I suppose, like the character of the jungle and the atmosphere and what that means are kind of drawn in. We also have one of Hamra's friends, whose name I have forgotten. Ilias, yeah, Ilias. So Hamra and Ilias end up going on this quest, and within that they discover more about themselves. They discover more of their nature, more of what their friendship means. And I love that Hamra goes on a journey. Like, Hamra is awesome. She's always been awesome. But there's certain things that she needed to work on. And it just, the way it just organically happens within this is just, I think, really beautifully done. The fairy tale aspect definitely comes from like the structure and how it goes about, and again, it's this full circle feeling that you get with it. I love the magic aspect of it. There's tension, there's danger, there's moments when the characters are low, there's moments when they pull together, there's thoughts on judgments, of second chances, and just all of the themes within it were absolutely gorgeous. And yeah, it's my favourite book it's my favourite middle grade this year, and I highly recommend it to everybody. So first of all, thank you so much, Tiffany, for helping me be aware of this author and suggesting it as a hidden gem in the Middle Grade Reader Choice Awards 2023. Or I would never have picked it up. So it just goes to show how important BookTube is for getting all these amazing stories for us. The first sentence for Hamra. There was once a girl named Hamra who lived in a crooked house on the edge of the tangled Lankoi jungle with a mother and father who told her what to do. a grandfather who told her stories, and a grandmother who told her truths. And I'm going to read the second sentence because it's great. In time, she would come to discover that all of these things were equally important. And I want to keep reading it to you, but I won't. But yes, Hamra. We love Hamra. Okay, so here we go. My top 10. Oh, I've got one the wrong way round. How rude. It's just ruining my my setup. Jamie, stop being a pickle. There we go. Right, let's all spines facing out so we can see this line of books. There we go. So Hamra and the Jungle of Memories, Keedie, Amari and the Despicable Wonders, Root Magic, The Secret of Haven Point, Jamie, Snow Girl, Greenwild, The Door Beyond something, Patina, Impossible Creatures. These were my top 10 middle grade books of 2024. Thank you so much for watching. If you've got to the end of this video, obviously give me a tiger for Hamra. And I totally forgot to mention as well that Hamra is like a Malaysian retelling of Red Riding Hood. Anyway, back to the finishing off chat. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope it was fun seeing some middle grade top 10s. And I really hope if you haven't read some of these books that you want to pick them up. Please tell me what your favourite middle grade book that you read this year was. Have you read any of these? Do you agree with my top 10? You know I love a chat. Happy reading, everyone.